Hello everyone, I'm Anthropomantic Fiend and I review horror-related things on the internet, or not necessarily review them, but recommend them in this case. I'm appearing without sunglasses for this video because I'm going to be reading things. Yes, reading things. Terrifying, isn't it? Anyway, for this video, if you couldn't guess this by the title of the video, I'm going to be showing off and recommending some informational books of a sort on horror. And this isn't my complete collection of books on horror because I have way too many of those, but this is a good sampler. This is most of them actually, but I do have specific sections for other things. I have a huge collection of Tim Burton related books and a huge collection of specifically vampire stuff. And I may get into that stuff later, but this is just my general horror, for the most part, books. So, without further ado, the first book I'd like to recommend is, I believe that's Vukovic's Horror Miscellany, and this is a little just collection of little tidbits about different horror related things, all the essential stuff. It's got little top 10 lists for different things in the horror genre, and it's got a great variety of things. It's not just horror movies or horror books, but it goes into video games, it goes into music, talks about Black Sabbath and the Misfits, which is awesome. So I'm gonna read a little bit of what it says on the, what do you call this thing? Please let me know. Crammed with endless facts, trivia, and stories about every aspect of horror, from 1950s EC comics and the TV series The Twilight Zone, to the music of Black Sabbath and Japanese horror films, this little gem of spookiness is guaranteed to keep readers up all night. So yeah, Vukovic's Horror Miscellany. This is really good. Check this out. For something more visually focused, you've got this giant monstrosity, The Art of Horror, which is divided up into different creatures. It's got The Blood is the Life, which that isn't even on camera. Alright. It's got The Blood is the Life, which is on vampires, of course, and it's got an intro by David J. Skal, who's written all kinds of fantastic books. The Dead That Walk, Zombies, Mummies, and Other Walking Dead. Man-Made Monsters, Frankenstein's Monster and Other Creations. Even a Man Who Is Pure in Heart, Werewolves and Other Shape-Changers. More Things in Heaven and Earth, Ghosts, Phantoms, and Other Hauntings. We All Go a Little Mad Sometimes, Psychos, Slashers, and Other Serial Killers, Halloween Horrors, Witches, Devils, and Other Demons, The Old Gods Awaken, Lovecraft, and Other Cosmic Horrors. You can't see any of that because of the glare. Let's fix that. Giant Behemoths, Prehistoric Monsters, and Other Creatures, and Keep Watching the Skies, Alien Horrors and Other Invaders. And this book is also fantastic because it has an intro by none other than the almighty Neil Gaiman. And the basic premise of the intro here is really great because it talks about how he's just like, I know in a foreword like this I should talk about all the ins and outs and serious importance of horror, but every time I look through this book I come back to one thing, which is that horror is really fun. And that's basically my insight. I don't know if you can call it an insight. Just my take is that, yeah, there's all these important things that horror should show you and teach you, but it still really needs to be fun. I mean, not needs to be. There are some horror movies that are no fun, that are still worth the watch, but on the whole, I like horror to be fun. So, let me just flip through, give you a taste of what kind of stuff you're going to see in here. Take a look at that, and that. All of that loveliness. Some werewolves. So yeah, the art of horror. Now this is one I've got at the library a long time ago when I was just getting into horror movies, and helped me find a lot of things, and that is vintage monster movies. It's a huge informational book that starts in the 1920s with all the great silent stuff and goes through the 1950s, and it's super comprehensive. It's got all of its own little takes on how everything fits together, and it's got this huge index of alphabetical monster movies of the 20s through the 50s in the back, which is great if you want to find a bunch of great movies to watch. I'm going to just go through this and watch all of the... Oh, there's the film index. There we go. There is the film index. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go through this and just watch all of these at some point, because I really need to, and they're probably all really fun movies. Lots of lovely black and white stills in this book. There's one from Metropolis, there's one from Nosferatu, there's one from Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it's got a introduction by Forrest J. Ackerman of Famous Monsters of Filmland, talking about just talking about horror in general, his experiences with horror through his life, and it's written in the lovely pun-filled Forrest J. Ackerman style. So vintage monster movies is great if you're looking to dive into some classics of the genre. Next we've got Gothic, The Dark Heart of Film from the British Film Institute. I believe this was a companion piece to their, I think they did some kind of exhibit on the Gothic at some point. But this goes through Gothic in movies of all kinds, and it's super comprehensive. The pictures are gorgeous. That's one of Daniel Radcliffe in The Woman in Black, which is not the greatest movie I've ever seen, but an amazing looking movie. But it's got sections on the monstrous, talking about the vampire, and that's still not on camera, is it? Was this guy on camera? I don't know if he was. He's on camera now. That's Daniel Radcliffe in The Woman in Black. So you've got sections on... Was my vintage monster movies thing even on camera? I hope it was. But yeah, this got sections on all kinds of things. It's very comprehensive in the way that the art of horror was, and it's got little sections on very specific things like the Gothic and anthology film, the Gothic and comedy, gore and the Gothic, a little thing on Mario Bava, avant-garde Gothic, Japanese Gothic, Southern Gothic, queer Gothic, family Gothic. It's all things Gothic in film with some very lovely images in it. So, and I'm not kidding when I say it's comprehensive, because it includes things that I would not consider Gothic, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Twilight, unfortunately, but The Art of Gothic. Check it out. Here is a fun one. This is Ed Wood and the Lost Lugosi Screenplays. What this is a little collection. Well, it starts with some discussions of the life of Ed Wood with some people, and a synopsis of the movies, and then it's got the actual scripts by Ed Wood for some unmade movies. The Ghoul Goes West being one, and The Vampire's Tomb being another. So if you want to look at what some of the unmade Bela Lugosi Ed Wood movies would have been, this is a great book. And I think it would be fun to actually try and make some of these into a movie at some point. I think somebody has actually pieced together movies for some of these, like using old film clips to see what it would look like, but I haven't looked at any of that stuff, and I still think it would be fun to shoot something with one of these scripts at some point. But it's straight up photocopy of the actual script typed up by Ed Wood. So Ed Wood and the Lost Lugosi Screenplays is awesome. Check it out. Here's a cool one. This is Monster Mash, the creepy kooky monster craze in America, 1957 to 1972. It discusses the monster craze in America, like it says. It talks about, horror hosts and monster magazines, horror comics, like the Aurora Monster models, all of this classic horror stuff that kids were obsessed with at the time. This topic has been an obsession of mine for a long time, so a book like this that's got all the things that people were into at the time is really great. And it has a foreword by the wonderful Zachary, which I think is great. I never watched one of his shows, but I've watched footage of him, and he's quite entertaining. And I love horror host things in general. There's all kinds of lovely art from all kinds of things in this book. So, yeah. Monster Mash. Check this out. This one's kind of an odd one out because it's not really an informational book, but it's got a lot of great artwork in it, and it's how to draw chiller monsters, werewolves, vampires, and zombies, and it's more or less an instructional book on how to draw for kids, but it's got all of this great monster artwork by so many different artists in it. Like, check that out. And that used as a model. It's got like panels from Creepy magazine, and what else is in here? There was one particularly cool thing, if I can find it. we've got the storyboards for the blood drinking scene in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which, does this really belong in a drawing book for kids? Probably not, but I love Bram Stoker's Dracula, so who cares? This is a great collection of horror art. It's helped me draw, and all of these books seem to have great forwards and intros. It's got a little intro by Rob Zombie saying, "Where the hell was this book when I was a kid?" So if Rob Zombie's recommending it, it's probably good. Except he recommends Cannibal Holocaust, and I never want to see Cannibal Holocaust, but that has nothing to do with anything. This book is good. Check it out. This one is It Came from Bob's Basement, and this is a really fascinating book by Bob Burns, who has collected all kinds of horror memorabilia over the years, horror and sci-fi stuff, and it goes through his life from a very early age, showing like the rocket models he collected when he was a kid, and then going into like he would go onto sets of serials and like 50s monster stuff, and it goes into like home movies he made. This home movie was actually on the like Monster Kid Home Movies DVD that I mentioned in my I Am Omega review. So it shows all the props for that thing, and it's got cool stuff like, I just lost that, props from Ed Wood, this mold of Bela Lugosi's face that was used by Martin Landau. There's a super interesting thing on when he was drafted, and he used his makeup effects expertise to help create realistic looking stuff for people like trying to treat wounds on people, so he started doing like gore effects to help people figure out how to treat wounds on people, which is great. There's goes into the later years with stuff from American Werewolf in London, stuff from Terminator, and there's a whole little bit on if I can find it. I can't find it, but there's stuff from when his haunted houses that he did at his house over the years, all of which were really great. But yeah, great stuff from and about the collection of Bob Burns. May he rest in peace. Check this book out. And last but certainly not least is Too Much Horror Business, the Kirk Hammett collection. I have this one shelved right between my rock books and my horror books because it's both. It is the massive horror collection of Kirk Hammett of Metallica, who I actually got into because he loved horror, and he made a custom Vincent Price guitar, which my dad bought me because he knew I loved horror, and then I found out it was a Kirk Hammett guitar. I started listening to Metallica, and hi, I'm a metalhead now. But yeah, it starts, here's him with his wax figures of Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi and the Black Cat. it has little bits talking about him, and then it starts in the 1920s and works forward, and then it talks about just all kinds of stuff with him and his experiences with horror and his collection going through the decades, and it's got little blurbs about what he thinks about everything running through the book. And then I really love this photo of Kirk just in a pile of stuff. It's got a section on monster toys. And it's got some pictures of his... Yeah, it's got the music and monsters section, which has some of his lovely guitars. One of which I have, and it's not pictured in this book. This has got, like, his Mummy guitar and his Frankenstein guitar. I have his Vincent Price Pit and the Pendulum Famous Monsters guitar, which I love to pieces, but... yeah. This is a great book. You should get it. Get all of these if you can, unless you don't want to, and then don't. Anyway, that is my general collection of informational horror movie books. I have been Anthropomantic Fiend. I still am Anthropomantic Fiend, but the video's over now, so thank you for watching.